Welcome back. This is part 7, and it's Lance White with Andrew Bartzis. And we left off talking about we're going to talk about the Orion Wars or the Syrian Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And then another element that's been added into this have been all the nuclear explosions that have gone on to lower the density. So wherever you want to begin.
Let's start with the Orion Wars.
Okay.
The Orion species, are soul family to us. They were refugees here. We were refugees on their planet. They were both the good guys and the bad guys, and so were we both the good guys and bad guys. So to understand the wars is about how soul societies and races can be split up into factions that fight themselves.
Mm.
Now, the string-pulling puppetry entities love this little game that they do. And the Syrian Grey, the Orion Wars, are all essentially massive puppetry wars to put soul families into war states or karmic resolution states with each other.
Mm-hmm.
The Orion Wars, when they came to a head in 2006, it was about the technological side versus the spiritual side. The spiritual side adopted some technology. The technological side refused all spiritual side. So you had the sides that were creating beings with no trees of life, creating clones that were just for warriors, and it was an affront to universal law.
Super soldiers also.
Super
right?
soldiers also. So they also began kidnapping people from other worlds because they would become the perfect ship engines. There are people that were taken because of the types of psychic energies that they have.
Okay.
They literally would take them out of their physical body and then implant them in the ship to be the drive. This was the other affront to what they were doing. The technological side didn't care about the sovereign free will of what they were doing. You were just a part with a number to them.
Mm.
That's it. That's all you were. When the wars came to a head, there were about 350 planets that were in the field of operation. The United species that are enforcing the quarantine here are also battling the reptoids of the various, there's several dozen different versions of reptoids. The red-based reptoids are the ones we're functioning here with. These reptoids understood that Earth had its chance to extend out from 2006 to change the event date before the audit. So what they did was released, best way we'll describe it, a slave force over a span of several thousand worlds, and they just let them all go and created a massive refugee nightmare. No food, very little water, no technology, just left these trillions of people there and said, all right, good guys, go help those 7 trillion people. And then reamassed all their forces to break the blockade on Earth. At that point, 2006, there were reptoid vessels forcing themselves into the solar system. At the same time, the forces of light were trying to finish the last of the Orion Wars.
Huh.
Okay, so
Wow.
This is the field of battle, the entire scope. The Orion Wars, they mass invested their technological vessels, so there was a war with millions of ships invested into them, so that they can break the blockades that are around those worlds, because they had blockaded those worlds, so technology couldn't come out.
Mm-hmm.
So in part of the technological trades. When the Orion Wars finally came to an end, the last of the despots were taken off. They began to bring lots of people back to the galactic central sun for recyclement, but they had to deal with what the reptoids left over. That's why we didn't get our ascension in 2006, why we didn't get a graduating class. There weren't enough forces out there to do it. And they actually were able to break the blockade a number of times and get a significant amount of people off of our world, as well as the different DNAs.
Wow.
I can go into individual battle descriptions. I really don't think that applies because it's pretty dark.
Mm-hmm.
And in this neutral perspective, I've experienced some very, very dark things. And it doesn't, how do I put this? It disgusts me at one level when I'm not in the quantum field and I'm not reading it, but when I'm in this level, I understand that it is information.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it could easily put people in a fear state, and I don't want to put people in a fear state.
Right.
the wars were just as when Germany fell at the end, and you had Hitler inside his bunker. The same thing was in the Orions. They never thought they would lose. Ego to the last second.
Mm-hmm.
And they murdered many of their own people that were innocent.
Yeah.
War is hell. War is not a nice thing. I can describe the big battles out in space. Giant planet ships fighting giant planet ships, interdimensional mercenaries coming from other realms and other universes to be on both sides.
Wow.
We have groups like the Silver Legion.
Huh.
Have you ever heard of them?
No, I haven't.
Well, I'd advise people to look them up. They're an interdimensional force that basically arose during the very founding of domination and control that was separate of the forces of light that have been unified now. And they go around from world to world to world and teach people how to be attackers against a dominating and invading force.
Mm.
And then they will recruit high energy beings to come and function with them for a certain period of time. There are other groups that are very similar to them. I just chose them because they're doing an active role here right now. And that active role is being Dreamtime Defenders, Dreamtime Warriors. They're protecting people from the day terrors and night terrors that are going to be spread upon us.
Mm. So these are things that we need to be aware of and watch out for.
Yep.
And the more we can raise our awareness about this kind of information, the better off we are in terms of recognizing a situation as it occurs and neutralizing it.
Mm-hmm.
Not going into fear, not going into judgment, and using the proper tools to neutralize the effects of it. A lot of fear has been spread about on the internet about a coming galactic war, and it seems that that's one of the plans that's been in the hopper to scare the bejesus out of us, that there will be some kind of fake alien war, and then they'll bring out the good guys, which will actually be the
Same guys
that have been pulling all the dirty tricks.
Mm-hmm.
So is that something that...
I think I call that Project Bluebeam.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
Is that a happenstance? No. The vast majority of their plans have been neutered.
Okay.
They don't have the technology to use the mass Earth-based holograms to make a fake invasion. All that technology has been removed already.
Oh.
Also, the key players of those systems have been removed from the timelines.
Oh.
So they can't do the vast majority of those big fear things.
Okay.
But what they can do is propagate propaganda that makes a certain section of people so fearful that they can create a temporary destruction in their area.
Right.
A volcano, an earthquake. Though I am in this state of understanding that no big destructions will happen unless you create it in your local reality because of mass propaganda and fear, carpet bombing that area.
Mm-hmm. What about us being in the asteroid belt? We've moved into a different section of the galactic plane.
That's science.
Okay.
And science is misinformed.
No, obviously, since they don't know how many planets we have around it.
The asteroid theory that they're referring to is a way to limit us so we can't see beyond the stars that they're telling us exist.
Right.
The visual patterns of the stars will begin to change. That's something else you'll see in the event, though. People that just look up and go, that should be the Big Dipper there. And there's a whole new pattern there. But not everyone will see it. It'll begin to spread and spread and spread because the reality is beginning to change. Star patterns will be different. And just looking up in the sky and seeing a star pattern from one you saw a million lifetimes ago will trigger you through your awakening process. And there will be people that find themselves experiencing the Orion Wars. They were on the ship and one of their multidimensional parts was there.
Wow.
And they look up in the sky and see the right pattern that lines up to the last thing that soul saw before he died when his ship crashed into another one.
Wow.
And it all transfers back to the person here who's the avatar of the different pieces parts out there.
Mm-hmm.
We're the avatars here. Avatar meaning the master consciousness that allows parts of itself to gain sovereign free will to go out and experience life so multidimensionally we can expand and learn and love and live.
Okay. And the time frame for us doing that has pretty much been condensed. It's condensing because of the density. We're going through the period of density, but we just moved out of the period of greatest density, didn't we?
The heaviest density.
The heaviest density. So we should.
Just Mars and Earth are still on the dense side,
Ah.
and it's the sleep people that are keeping us anchored there.
Okay.
So the parts of our solar system that are in there are in the sine wave is expanded.
Okay.
And it's going to keep expanding and expanding until the polarity of consciousness forces this in. And that skip is what will be the first unified dream time experience instead of moment.
Okay.
The 21st of December was the first experience in 28,000 years. The first moment of infinity is way more intense.
Ah.
Okay? I mean, you've had experiences where you've experienced, a consciousness expanding thing where
Yeah.
you understood the infinite,
Oh,
and
yeah.
as soon as it was over, wow.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
That's what the jump will be like.
Wow.
Where they go over the hill of the roller coaster.
Can't wait.
Put your arms up.
Right, right.
Nuclear explosions.
Yes.
When they started testing nuclear explosions, it wasn't a test. It was purpose. Everywhere there was a nuclear explosion, it was done on purpose to make interdimensional rifts or to kill hollow Earth-based entities or Earth-based entities that live in the astral realms. All the orbital explosions were meant to destroy whole incoming migration patterns,
Okay.
completely eliminate them from the astral experience, and many of them can no longer function as energy beings and need to be brought to Venus to triage centers,
Wow.
where literally soul triage centers can put the pieces parts back together one step at a time.
Isn't there also a factor that if there were enough nuclear explosions that went off on the Earth, that the Earth would be unable to continue functioning?
Correct. Also, if they had done that, they would have had full access to Hollow Earth, the Garthan network. The nuclear explosions, there's an actual website that shows each individual explosion from the 1940s on,
Mhm.
and you'll see America has like 5,800 to France's 11 to Russia's 700, and it just shows you all over the world,
Oh.
explosion, and it tells you the altitude or the depth in the Earth. I advise everyone to go and use a search engine and find that little graphic of everyone going off. When you physically see that for yourself, you'll realize it's lined up to exactly the grids of Earth. What's the pyramid grid? The pyramid's on the Giza grid.
Right.
It all interacts with that energy.
Right.
All of those explosions are purposely in areas to inter-affect the grids of Earth
Right. Right.
and to lower consciousness, destroy consciousness. Also to create portals for smuggling off-world. We've been under a quarantine essentially since about 400 AD. Though the quarantine didn't have the amount of vessels it has now, it had just enough to prevent mass exodus of slave races to being sold off like they did previously. And there are times there were vessels that came in here and fought the existing vessels back and forth. 1566, the big battle over Germany, they have that wood tablet.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually 250, 300,000 vessels involved in that, whole planet-wide, mass invasion. And, how do I put this? It changed consciousness then.
Mm-hmm.
And the system of domination and control needed to erase that. So they brought in the plague.
Ah.
They also brought in the plague to eliminate certain soul families that had a DNA lineage that already had a complete soul code. But all those people that died from the plague literally had a few seconds in the astral world to review their life before they were forced back in.
Wow.
So they cleared the DNA that they didn't want, but kept the souls that they wanted.
Wow. That is really
Okay.
clever. Really clever. As George says, you have to give them
You have to give them
credit
credit.
for.
Mhm.
Wow.
Gotta give them credit.
Wow.
They didn't miss anything.
No.
They didn't miss a thing.
And so when we see that there are things going on in the world, I've taken the perspective that there are no accidents.
Nope.
Especially when it comes to any negative event
Mhm.
and anything that creates fear. It is all planned and scripted
Absolutely.
at every level, from the the highest to the lowest. Now,
I have a little bit more about nuclear explosions.
oh yes, I was going to ask you.
When our scientists, how do I put this, began to experiment. Even, I think Rosenberg said, we're ending the world here.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
That's right.
They were in influence of off-world species, both positive and negative.
Yeah,
I have to
makes
get
sense.
that clear. Some of them were really good people and some of them were not. Okay? Many of them came from Project Paperclip, Nazi direct over. They were all full party members and fully approved of everything that was going on in the final solution. Now, the Nordic race that is said to interact with them, that was this particular sect that was interfunctioning with those scientists because they ultimately knew that they had to go to America because of the timeline wars.
Mhm.
They had to go there. So they brought the technology into the German structures because they were the only, how do I put this, people at the time that had the sentience to comprehend the technology that was being given to them. Because the science wasn't there for even the beginning of the understanding.
Mhm.
But the telepathic communication could give them that, even though the person never knew it's being given to them.
Hmm.
And given to them in doses, so that they could create the technology. Because after World War II, you have a mass technological revolution.
Mhm.
I mean, if you really think about it, we went from no plumbing and outhouses, in the 1900s to 1930s, to having solid state circuitry, and everybody had a radio in the 60s, 20 years,
That's right.
to having computers and cell phones in the 80s, to being in the social networking age and the internet age now. And where does technology take us now? It can't take us any further because the advertising industry has made so much money off of us. They have to show us the next level, but they can't at the same time. So, how do I put this? I'm trying to find the right linguistics that isn't limiting.
Okay.
We operate in human linguistics that literally limit our vibration by cadence and tone.
Mhm.
I call this sacred geometry linguistics by design from the very beginning of our oral traditions that were meant to limit us,
Huh.
quite literally.
Wow.
They've gone even to that level. The nuclear explosions affected so many of us still, like white sands. The granite that was there
Oh.
took
Yeah.
the impression and is constantly radiating out into our grid. The ones in our atmosphere is constantly radiating out into our grid. Some of these chemtrails are meant to empower those spots where those nuclear weapons went off,
Wow.
so that they're constantly creating multidimensional portals so that they can bring in travelers from other dimensions or travelers from other timelines beyond the quarantine zone that's around us.
Mhm.
This right now is the moment of smuggling. Like, even as we speak right now, there's operations to prevent smuggling. These are people that have been kidnapped from their homes and have scientific experiments done on them, and they're going to be put into slave societies in other worlds.
Wow. I'm just ordinary, everyday people like anybody that could.
Their genetics makes them unordinary,
Ah, got you.
or their soul makes them unordinary.
And of course, their soul can be removed from the container and
Put into
repacked
something
for something else. Yes, which is something that could happen to anybody.
Anyone. The Greys do that a lot.
Mm.
They make a Walmart of bodies. They pick out model 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, and they just transfer their consciousness between it.
Yeah.
And at times they just transfer their consciousness from one ship to another, just like in a single moment. I'm just taking this clothes off and putting on another one.
Huh. Interesting. How many of the of the leaders that are existing today have been cloned? I've read that before. That just about everybody.
They aren't really cloned. They have
they-
to hold soul contracts.
Okay.
If you're in a government position, you are the holder of the soul contracts for the system of domination and control.
Right.
Somebody actually has to physically be the holder of those contracts.
Okay. Are they
So-
aware of that?
No,
Okay.
most
So
of them
this
no. I mean, there are a few that are aware of it.
this is just an unconscious.
It's an unconscious. It's
Right.
part of the way the system of spirit contracts were to keep domination and
Okay.
control in place.
Okay.
There has to be a contract. And if you never know about spiritual contracts, you'll never know you're even the holder.
Right,
Okay.
right.
You get the Queen of England, a major holder of domination and control. The contracts that she holds keeps the kingships and lordships energy from time traveler enforced into this world. Why is there a God Save with the Queen song? Why is it coming here to America? We don't care about the British Queen. You know, she's a media icon for a reason, because her view has to always be in public, because the energy of our perception keeps this kingship concept going, and she's the sole contract holder for the religions that are stealing our consciousness.
Like the Catholic religion
Mm-hmm.
and so on and so forth. So she's working very closely with the Vatican.
Correct.
And so they're basically working hand in hand, so to speak.
Yes, some can be considered knights or bishops of the chessboard. The queen isn't the queen of the chessboard.
Right,
okay?
right. She's still part of the management.
She's part of the management.
Right.
But her say doesn't influence the Archon grid. And in fact, very few people in the world have any say over the Archon grid. And those would be the highest level of the banking families, the highest level of the controller families can speak to the Archon levels, but really have little influence other than whispering in their ear.
Wow. How do they communicate?
Dark rituals.
Ah.
I mean, it's ingrained into that concept.
Right.
To be a part of the domination and control, you have to have gone through those rituals many lifetimes.
Yeah.
So all of your sovereign free will is given to the domination and control system. That's where your pledge allegiance and oath to domination and control. There shall never be any other than God other than the one, which is the one with domination and control.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, so the original God that's claimed to be the jealous God, the Jehovah and Yahweh and the rest of it, were those alien
Those were aliens
entities
that were here to create propaganda.
And the God consciousness, the God script,
The God
program,
script,
the God program,
God meme,
The
whatever you want to
right.
call it.
And then now that energy is milked from
The praying people.
right, exactly.
The Bible, I have to adjust this. There are good people in religion. The Bible was written by multidimensional beings who are leapfrogging through time, influencing each generation of people through each printing of it, so that you stay in that propaganda format. Revelations is a crock.
Oh, right.
It's part of the
right.
crap sandwich we all been eating.
Right.
All right?
Right.
It's to create fear.
Right.
The true Gospels, the true Gnostics, we are the gods. Okay? And the same Bible says God will only judge in equity. Equity is not blind justice. Equity sees all sides. Equity understands that even the dark forces are going to need to be forgiven. And for us light people who can't forgive, we solely suffer. And we prevent our ascension.
Right, that's a very good point.
We are the preventers of it.
That's a very good point.
If you can't forgive, you're preventing.
Right. Right, that's a really good point. And then that also ties into not judging either. Although there's a time for judgment and a time for righteous anger.
Correct. Righteous
So,
anger.
Yeah, we have to know when, and I would say those 15 beings.
Your time is up. Your time is up. No more secrets.
Right, exactly. Let the skirt blow up.
That's right.
Now, the Nazi movement was brought over here by through Project Paperclip, and as we know, all these different scientists were installed in corporations and pharmaceutical industries.
As part of the time travel wars.
Probably Monsanto and the NASA, never a straight answer, and so on and so forth. So they are pretty pervasive, are they not? I've heard they have underground bases with technology that's beyond belief, and gold coming out there, literally coming out there.
They can manifest gold.
They can manifest gold, okay.
But our natural gold is the key. Our natural gold is what's used to encase DNA or humans that are being smuggled off the world.
Really?
Because it has the Earth's energy in it.
Oh,
It's
how
not a man-made
interesting.
crystal. It's a naturally made mineral, which is special when you find the right stuff.
Huh.
So all the gold that's been holding in the various vaults is not man-made gold, is not manifest gold, it's natural gold, because that's the value for the exchange for technology.
Oh, so how do they smuggle
They essentially, if you have an individual human, they basically spray liquid gold onto them without harming them,
Wow.
so that they're protected from the interdimensional rift energies of breaking the smuggling, of making the for a smuggler to function, they have to find a dimensional portal that was created by the multiple nuclear weapons in the upper atmosphere.
Okay.
So another smuggling vessel will target a galactic central sun somewhere else, and it'll use the soul codes to open up the galactic central sun to come directly to our sun, but at the same time increase their time value from a separate galaxy so that they come in as a super long sine wave. And as soon as the tip of the sine wave is in that dimensional portal, the dimensional protection grid that's on Earth detects smuggling, but it's so instantly that they can transport up and then be back out of reality. And the human body that's encased in gold is now protected by that dimensional rift. And every time these smugglers do a dimensional rift, they're killing hundreds or thousands of astral entities. It's a great violation to do that kind of smuggling.
Interesting. Wow. So there was something to the movie Goldfinger. That wasn't just a...
Soft disclosure.
Yeah, soft disclosure, yes. Wow. Huh. Oh, so now... well, there was another quick question I wanted to throw in here, because we haven't really discovered it or talked about it too much, and that was, what part do the angelics and the various angelic realms play? There have been stories about the Nephilim and the Elohim having created the earth, and there are also stories that they're part dark and part light. What is the true angelic story that's going on?
The angelics, you have to understand the system of angelics, the way we give them a pecking order,
Right.
is propaganda.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So to give them a pecking order and a power order is to give away your power.
Okay.
True angelic beings won't violate your free will. True angelic beings are essentially the embodiment of ascended masters.
Okay.
They're somehow related to your soul family.
Okay.
When we get into the concept of angelic beings, we have to go back to the founding of this universe, quite literally. The first light species that were spawned here by the Galactic, the universal prime creator who made the first galaxy, and then separated into second galaxy, third galaxy, fourth galaxy, and each time inviting souls from other universes to come and populate his galaxy or his universe.
Mm-hmm.
I say his, I'm sorry, if it's multi-everything. I'm just using that.
Okay.
So the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth migration pattern into this universe represents the angelic beings. They are the oldest beings that began with our universe. There was a big wave of angelic beings who left our universe out of free will, and another wave came in, and then the older ones came back, and the younger ones left. And many times, the ones that left took on the names of the ones that were leaving, the new ones coming in. So it really isn't the same being.
Okay.
One would leave, another would take its spot. One would leave, another would take its spot.
Okay.
So the angelic beings are good people. They're light beings. But there is the opposition to them, which are the demonics.
Right.
And the demonics were also invited in here by the Universal Prime Creator. Because
Really?
one cannot exist without the other.
Ah.
Light cannot exist without the dark. This is a free-willed universe. That's where they put the sacred neutral beings. These are other types of angelics that can be both angel and demon at the same time.
Right.
Or neither angel
Right.
and demon.
They balance.
Right.
Right.
Light can't exist without dark, and dark cannot exist without light. So the angelic and demonic wars of the Bible are propaganda,
Right.
but there is a spark of truth in it.
Yeah.
Because they did battle in the beginning, but it was meant to battle. And after a while, they began to ascend onto worlds and become ascended masters. It's not dissension, the descending of Lucifer. It is ascension into a lower form to create more consciousness, more life expanding. So the universe's consciousness, total potential consciousness of sentience is constantly expanding. The universe stops expanding if there's a retraction of consciousness. It's the
Right.
total sum of the consciousness of the entire universe that keeps it expanding.
Right.
So if you're the two sides constantly in conflict,